Hello, magical people. My name is Luminix, and in this video, I am going to go over one of Donald Trump's new executive orders. Today is Monday, January 20th, 2025. I am not a specialist or an expert in any area, nor am I a scientist or a lawyer or anything like that. I'm just a person who felt called to read and go over this information, and so, well, I'm inviting you along for the ride, and I am so pleased that you are joining me. I'm really making this video to help me process and think through the review of this executive order. I have only actually read the preamble to it and decided that I needed to just go ahead and make a video. And maybe if you're seeing this, then obviously I decided to put it on YouTube, but even that's not a sure thing right now. But anyhow, let's get into it. I am armed and ready to go. I have a joint, have some whiskey with a very fancy cherry. It's that makes whiskey good or better, and a whole pile of water. And obviously, I'm not prepared. My nail polish is all fucked up. Literally wearing my Uncle Earl coat. It's not usually something that I even will go to the grocery store in, let alone make a video for the internet. But part of the theme in 2025 is self, anyways, lowering barrier of entry to things. So, yeah, we're just going to just go right in. We're just going to jump right in. So, the executive order that I want to talk about is this one, the Defending Women from Gender Ideology Extremism and Restoring Biological Truth to the Federal Government. So, all right, so let's see here. Section 1, Purpose. Across the country, ideologues who deny the biological reality of sex, which, okay, I know we're less than one line in, but I just got to make an aside here that nobody, literally nobody, is denying the reality of biological sex. So that's just a silly thing to even say. And I think just points to the fact that this is coming from such a place of overt dishonesty, and simply cemented in bigotry. Anyhow, ideologues who deny the biological reality of sex have increasingly used legal and other socially coercive means. Oh, sounds like there's a little bit of demonization happening there. To permit men to self identify as women. Okay, nobody, see, you know what's funny is that already here within the very first line of this, we're seeing something interesting. We're seeing the use of talking about the biology of sex, which the language for the biology of sex is male and female, and the language for the biology of gender is man or woman. So already here in the language that's being used, they're already conflating sex and gender. And that is just regressive. I mean, there has been study about this for decades, and it is widely accepted that sex and gender are two different things. And also, just to sort of clarify, nobody is saying that nobody is permitting men to self-identify as women. No, that's not what's happening here. What's happening is that trans women are being allowed in the larger bucket of womanhood. That's all. So nobody's permitting men to self-identify as women. That is just not it. Anyhow, so all right, let's get back to this first sentence here. Okay. Let's see. Coercive means to permit men to self-identify as women and gain access to intimate single-sex spaces and activities designed for women, from women's domestic abuse shelters to women's workplace showers. Now, again, here, just to make a point of clarifying, it sounds as though here that the picture that's being painted is that trans people, and particularly trans women, are uh, some sort of monstrous beast that has just there's got to be all of this evidence and data that trans women put cis women at risk in some way. But you know what? The fact of the reality is that in a lot of situations, including in domestic abuse shelters, as well as in prisons, trans women are far more likely to be victimized than cis women. So, again, this is just bad faith. This is wrong. Efforts to eradicate the biological reality of sex, which nobody is doing, fundamentally attack women by depriving them of their dignity, safety, and well being. This, again, is just trash. One, again, nobody is eradicating the biological reality of sex. And by being inclusive of trans women and accepting trans women as a particular type of woman, that is doing nothing to deprive cis women of their dignity, safety, and well being. The erasure of sex in language and policy has a corrosive impact not just on women, but on the validity of the entire American system. Whoa, wild. That is just a wild and grandiose statement to make. We're going to read that again. The erasure of sex in language and policy has a corrosive impact not just on women, but on the validity of the entire American system. Wow, that is just that's a bold fucking statement, y'all. Basing federal policy on truth is critical to scientific inquiry, public safety, morale, and trust in government itself. Again, oh, Mr. Mann says hi. I call bullshit on this because all of the scientific data and all of the major medical associations, as well as psychiatric and psychological associations, are in agreement that being trans is real and that being trans is not a problem. It's just another way that human beings naturally exist because we do exist across a spectrum. Trans women and trans men have always existed. Non-binary folk have always existed, and the preponderance of history as well as the scientific evidence more in modernity around trans issues and sex issues and the biology and psychology of all of these things. Again, they are in agreement here. So just the very place that this whole thing is coming from while claiming to want to have saying that truth is critical to scientific inquiry is just like mind blowingly stupid because this whole thing in and of itself acts against what all of the science is saying. Okay. This unhealthy road is paved by an ongoing and purposeful attack against the ordinary and long-standing use and understanding of biological and scientific terms. Okay. Wait a minute. This unhealthy road is paved by an ongoing and purposeful attack against the ordinary and long-standing use and understanding of biological and scientific terms. Oh, shut the fuck up and get the fuck out of town while you're at it. Because, like, come on now. I mean, language evolves. There's lot, and not only does language evolve, but language evolves based on our ongoing understanding of things. So, one, I first of all, I don't think, again, pointing to the fact that trans people have always existed, to say that there is this long-standing use of biological and scientific terms is again just pointing at something that's not even really there and not really even happening because this is just trying to, one, rewrite history, and two, just language is meant to evolve. Anyways, replacing the immutable biological reality of sex with an internal, fluid, and subjective sense of self unmoored from biological facts. Yeah, that's gender. That's gender. I mean, it's not. It is subjective, but it's not unmoored from biological facts. The we still really don't have a whole lot of understanding of brains and exactly how they work. And again, I am not a scientist at all. I'm just a person who's interested in this shit. But as I understand it, there have been some interesting discoveries that have been made that point to the fact that, one's sense of self and as it pertains to one's own sense of gender does probably have some biological mooring. It's not like you can point to the part of the brain and be like, there's your gender, or you can point to a chromosome and point and say, there's your gender. But sort of like the same thing with sexuality is that it does seem as though there is something written in here to just the way people are. It's just the way some people are. Um, all right. Let me make my point. I don't even remember what trying to but anyways, all right. Um, Invalidating the true and biological category of woman. See, now, woman isn't a biological category. Woman is a category of gender that most often, for most people who would consider themselves to be a woman, they are also more likely to be a person who was assigned female at birth. But again, that's not always the case. And just not for nothing here, but like trans man erasure. I just want to say here, like, you can tell that a lot of this is dripped in the bigotry of misogyny by the very simple fact that they're not even talking about trans men, because trans men aren't the threat. The threat are trans women. Not that trans women are actually a threat to women or to cis women or to anybody for that matter, but they are somehow perceived as being more threatening because there is this misogynistic, and I don't even know if it's conscious in a lot of people, but there is this misogynistic idea that if you are a trans woman, then you are really a man who is giving up manhood to be like an inferior woman. And so the fact that such a point is always being made of trans women has more to do with the overt misogyny of the system, in my opinion, than it does with any actual fact. And because transphobes and turfs see trans men as just poor, confused girls. There's so much infantilization of happens with anybody who is assigned female at birth, and certainly trans men don't escape that infantilization because transphobe on some level incorrectly don't see them as men at all. They see them as women. So again, just had to point that out. Where was I? Okay. Uh, Okay. Invalidating the true and biological category of women improperly transforms laws and policies designated to protect sex-based opportunities into laws and policies to undermine them, replacing long-standing cherished legal rights and values with an identity-based, inchoate social concept. Wow, what a load of garbage and just white knighting for women in some way that, like, as a woman or at least woman adjacent person, I'm certainly not fucking asking for. Trans women are no threat to uh, anyone, woman or not. Okay. Accordingly, my administration will defend women's rights and protect freedom of conscience by using clear and accurate language and policies that recognize women are biologically female and men are biologically male. And see, that's just wrong. That's just wrong. That's just wrong. This is just wrong. This is just inaccurate, regressive, stupid thinking. Like, get with the fucking program. Like, they just want people to be dumb, and so they dumb shit down to people. But the fact is that gender and sex are two very different things. And yeah, okay. Let's see. Section 2, policy and definitions. It is the policy of the United States to recognize two sexes, male and female. So completely just erasing anybody who's intersex, which is not an insignificant number of people. These sexes are not changeable. I would actually make the argument. So I don't think that trans people in general make the assertion that if you start out being assigned male at birth and are a trans woman and go through any variety of changes, including hormone replacement therapy or surgical changes, I don't think anybody has ever said that that will change the past and the personal history of that single person in question and make them having been not assigned male at birth. So like again, they're pushing against something that yeah, I lost my thought there. Anyways, okay. The sexes are not changeable and are grounded in fundamental and incontrovertible reality. Under my direction, the executive branch will enforce all sex protection laws to promote this reality, and the following definitions shall govern all executive interpretation and of and application of federal law and administrative policy. A. Sex shall refer to an individual's immutable biological classification as either male or female. And again, just completely erasing that we have a whole slew of things that pop up regularly as part of a normal part of being human at scale who don't fit clearly into either the biological classification of either male or female. So that's what we call intersex folks. So again, just complete and total erasure of intersex folks. Sex is not a synonym for and does not include the concept of gender identity. Well, I agree with them there. Sex and gender are two different things. And yeah, okay, I guess so. Okay, sex is not a synonym for and does not include the concept of gender identity. Okay, awesome. There's something there that I can agree with. Women or women and girl or girls shall mean adult and juvenile human females, respectively. C, man or man, and boys or boys shall mean adult and juvenile human males, respectively. D, female means a person belonging at conception to the sex that produces the large reproductive cell. I mean, at conception, like it's at conception, there is no differentiation between females and males. Like that comes later in the process of biology, but am I surprised that they are reducing after that? No, I guess not. But gender ideology replaces biological category of sex with an ever-shifting concept, self-assessed gender identity, permitting the false claim that males can identify as and thus become women and vice versa, and requiring all institutions of society to regard this false claim as true. Gender ideology includes the idea that there is a vast spectrum of genders that are disconnected from one sex. Yes. Gender ideology is internally inconsistent. That is not true, in that it diminishes sex as an identifiable or useful category, but nevertheless maintains that it is possible for a person to be born in the wrong sexed body. It is internally inconsistent in that it diminishes sex as an identifiable or useful category, but nevertheless maintains. Yeah, I don't understand how that is inconsistent in any way, but maybe I'm just not smart enough. Gender identity reflects a fully internal and subjective sense of self, disconnected from biological reality and sex, and existing on an infinite continuum that does not provide a meaningful basis for identification and cannot be recognized as a replacement for sex. Okay. Recognizing women are biologically distinct from men. A, within 30 days of the date of this order, the Secretary of Health and Human Services shall provide to the U.S. government, external partners, and the public clear guidance expanding on the sex-based definitions set forth in this order. Okay. B, each agency and all federal employees shall enforce laws governing sex-based rights, protections, opportunities, and accommodations to protect men and women as biologically distinct sexes. Each agency should therefore give the term sex, male, female, men, women, boys, and girls meaning set forth in Section 2 of this order when interpreting or applying statutes, regulation, or guidance, and in all other official agency business documents and communications. When administering and enforcing sex-based distinctions, every agency and all federal employees acting in a federal capacity on behalf of their agency shall use the term sex and not gender in all applicable federal policies and documents. Secretaries of State and Homeland Security and the Director of Office of Personnel Management shall implement changes to require the government-issued identification documents, including passports, visas, and global entry cards, accordingly reflect the holder's sex as identified under Section 2 of this order, and the Director of the Office of Personnel Management shall ensure that applicable personnel records accurately report federal employees' sex as defined by Section 2 of this order. This is so fucking dumb. This is going to do nothing to help or protect anybody. All it's going to do is going to hurt people and also confuse people because, one, if you are a trans guy who passes as a man, but your passport has F on it, then that is just signaling you out for discrimination, not protecting you from discrimination. And, the conversation about whether or not people want to pass or whether or not people should want to pass is a bigger conversation for another day that I'm not really even qualified to have. Well, like that's up to like people. People get to choose how to live their own fucking life as far as I'm concerned. I'm pro bodily autonomy. Shocking that that should be something that's so fucking radical in 2025. But even beyond that, if we go back to Section 2 there, when they are talking about male and female equaling man and woman, that also is just going to serve to confuse things rather than to clarify things. How might you be wondering? Well, let me tell you. Usually, when we identify out and about in the world, people as male or female, or sometimes androgynous when we just can't tell legit one way or another, we are basing that obviously not on somebody's genitals, not on somebody's chromosomes. We're basing that on a bunch of secondary factors that include how people carry themselves, what they choose to wear, what they choose to do with their hair, um, whether or not there's boobs is usually an indication in one way, shape, or form. And so it's going to be confusing if you have people who code as women being identified as male. So again, this doesn't do anything to clarify or assist anybody. All it does is serve to hurt, harm, and demonize trans people. And also, we go back to, let's talk about secondary sex characteristics here for a minute, because from a biological, and again, I'm not a biologist, but I have heard biologists say this, and this makes all of the sense in the world. But when you have a person, for example, who was assigned male at birth and who goes through hormone replacement therapy, those breasts that those women grow are real breasts. That is a woman coded sexual sex characteristic. And so, on a pretty real spectrum, there's also a variety of other, it's not obviously just that you grow boobs. When you take hormones, when you take cross sex hormones, then there are a variety of changes that take place. And again, I'm not a pro. Seek out a fucking pro if you have curiosity about that shit. All I'm here to say is that from a very real sense, you are if you're taking hormone replacement therapy, then I think you legitimately move into the designation of being intersex because of the changes that occur from that use. So again, this executive order seems to not even acknowledge that intersex people exist, like in the wild, as a regular part of human reproduction. That is just not a statistical anomaly. It's regular and recurring. And yeah, so what's the fucking point I'm trying to make? I don't even know. What's the point I was making? Whiskey. This is just cruel. This is hurtful. It's not going to do anything to help anybody. This is going to make things more confusing, and it's not even based in fucking science. Um, Agencies shall remove all statements, policies, regulations, forms, communications, or other internal and external messages that promote or otherwise inculcate gender ideology and shall cease issuing such statements, policies, regulations, forms, communications, or messages. Agency forms that require an individual's sex shall list male or female and should not request gender identity. Agencies shall take all necessary steps as permitted by law to end the federal funding of gender ideology. Nobody's funding gender fucking ideology. Give me a fucking break. Oh God, I just fucking hate all this shit so much. It's like literally less than a month into this 4 fucking year long slide towards fascism, and I'm already tired. All right. The prior administration argued that the Supreme. Oh, okay. Prior administration argued that the Supreme Court's decision in Bostock v. Clayton County 2020, which addressed Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, requires gender identity-based access to single-sex spaces under, for example, Title IX of the Educational Amendments Act. This position is legally untenable and has harmed women. Bullshit. The Attorney General shall therefore immediately issue guidance to agencies to correct the misapplication of the Supreme Court's decision in Bostock v. Clayton 2020 to sex-based distinctions in agency activities. In addition, the Attorney General shall issue guidance and assist agencies in protecting sex-based distinctions, which are explicitly permitted under constitutional and statutory precedent. Federal funds shall not be used to promote gender ideology. Nobody is promoting gender ideology. Like, trans people and non-binary people just fucking exist. Like there's no promotion of that that's going on. Like that is just an acknowledgement of fucking reality. Um, each agency shall assess grant conditions and grantee preferences and ensure grant funds do not promote gender ideology. That's just an opportunity to fucking crack down on shit that they want to defund anyways. So yeah, okay. Water, light this joint. You can read section 4 on your own. Let's read it in silence, shall we? Yeah, they're coming after. Okay. Shall ensure that males are not detained in women's prisons or housed in women's detention centers, including through amendment as necessary. Blah, blah. Okay. So again, just not only the erasure of intersex folks here, but also now just the erasure of trans men. Like you're not even gonna just address it at all. Like it's so fucking misogynistic, even the writing of this bullshit executive order that like you can't even see through your fucking misogyny long enough to let your bigotry be applied equitably. Fucking give me a break. Secretary of Housing and Development shall review and submit for notice and commit rulemaking policy to send the final rule entitled Equal Access in accordance with an individual's gender identity in community planning and development programs on September 21, 16, and shall submit for public comments a policy protecting women seeking single-sex rape shelters. Yeah, and again, I just want to point out that there is literally no evidence that indicates trans women in any spaces, including bathrooms, locker rooms, and domestic abuse and domestic violence or domestic abuse uh, uh, crisis centers. There is no evidence at all that trans women create an increased threat to cis women. So the Attorney General shall ensure that the Bureau of Prisons revises its policies concerning medical care to be consistent with this order and shall ensure that no federal funds are expanded for any medical procedure, treatment, or drug for the purpose of conforming an inmate's appearance. Oh, fucking trash. It's not about appearance to that of the opposite sex. So this is going to be a problem here, right here. This one, this is the one that like, okay, so if you are a trans woman, for example, who has had an orchiectomy, which is a removal of the testicles, then the testes are where hormones are made. So if you're a trans woman who's had an orchiectomy, then you are not producing hormones um, anymore, which can be a problem. Um, Especially if you are still on the younger side. Like this can have long-term health complications. Honestly, again, not a biologist, not a doctor, so not something that I really know a whole lot about, but I do know that that is true. So to not offer care, to not offer hormones or medication at all for somebody who is in that situation would actually be doing an overt harm. And that I think is probably going to be challenged pretty quickly in court. Um, Whether that means they will amend this late language to say that a trans woman would have who has had in that rare situation has had an orchiectomy already and therefore is requiring hormone replacement therapy of some sort, failing the ability to produce hormones on their own. I don't know if that would mean that they would then have to take the endogenous hormone replacement therapy, which for a trans woman would be, uh, you know, testosterone, basically. So, like, this is just cruel. This is just cruel and fucking needless, especially considering the amount of, like, the percentage of the population that this is targeting is so fucking small that this is such a, like, pointed bigotry. Like, why are you going after trans folks? Like, just leave fucking trans people alone. Leave trans people of any age the fuck alone. Just, you know what? Like, Jesus Christ. Anyways, okay. Agencies shall effectuate this policy by taking appropriate action to ensure that intimate spaces designated for women, girls, or females, or for men, boys, or males, are designated by sex and not identity. Section 5, the AG shall issue guidance to ensure the freedom to express the binary nature of sex and the rights to single-sex spaces and workplaces and federally funded entities covered by the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So, the binary nature of sex, again, I just want to point to the fact that that is not even a true or accurate statement because sex is not binary. There are a whole slew of things that happen often enough that they are considered to be normative within the larger spectrum of the way humans show up. There's a whole spectrum of things that show up that prove to us that nature, while it may be uh, more common to be showing up as a binary, is not in fact a true and actual binary. I mean, just the fact that intersex people exist at all breaks the fucking binary. Like, this is just fucking common sense. Okay. All right. In accordance with this guidance, the AG, the Secretary of Labor, General Counsel, and the Chair of the Equal Employment Opportunities Commission, and each other agency head with enforcement responsibilities under the Human Rights Act shall prioritize by investigations and litigation to enforce the freedoms identified. By taking away your freedom, we are enforcing freedoms. Bill text. Within 30 days of the date of story, the assistant to the president for legislative affairs shall present to the president whose bill text to codify the definitions in this order. Great. Agency implementation and reporting. Within 120 days of the date of this order, each agency head shall submit an update on implementation of the order to the president. Blah, blah, blah. That update shall address changes to agency documents, including regulations, guidance forms, and communications, agency-based requirements on federally funded entities, including contractors, to achieve the policy of this order. Requirements of this order supersede conflicting provisions in any previous executive orders or presidential memoranda, including that limited blah blah blah. Yada yada. Joe Biden, Joe Biden, Joe Biden, Joe Biden. I'm not, to be honest with you, I'm not familiar with these cited executive orders that are hereby being rescinded. I think Trump also, like the very first executive order that he signed was the one that did undid pretty much any Biden executive order. So this seems a little bit um, like overkill, but whatever. Um, and the White House Gender Policy Council established by Executive Order 14020. So that must have happened after July or before July of 2020. Oh, that one. It's that one. Okay, 2020. Okay, yeah. Anyways. All right. Well, that's, great. Let's see. Each agency head shall promptly and rescind all guidance documents inconsistent with the requirements of this order or the AG's guidance issued pursuant to this order or rescind such such documents included but are not limited to the White House Toolkit on Transgender Equality, Department of Education's guidance and guidance documents including 2024 Title IX regulations, pointers for implementation, Board of Education Toolkit, creating inclusive and non-discriminatory school and environments for LGBTQ plus students, U.S. Department of Education supporting LGBTQ plus youth in school. God, this makes me so fucking sad. This is gonna hurt so many. I don't understand why. It's just fucking bigotry. It's just bigotry. I sure shit didn't vote for this. All right, well, 37 minutes in. That sucked. That sucked. This is going to be hard. This is going to be hard. This is going to be hard. This is going to be exhausting. So many people are going to suffer. It's going to, I've always kind of said that one of the more dangerous things I've always thought about President Trump is the way that he has just changed and broken rhetoric so much. And he's so irresponsible in his stewardship of the massive platforms that he has. And he's always been irresponsible. If that's, maybe spot on narcissism. Again, I'm not qualified. But the way he uses such violent rhetoric and the way he espouses openly such bigotry just gives permission to all of the people under him who also espouse that bigotry and hatred to also engage in violent rhetoric. And eventually, that shit trickles down to actual just violence. Sorry this was such a downer, folks. If you stuck with me through all this horrible hurt each other, don't forget to be kind and gentle with yourself.
Postscript. I think if you want to fucking defend women, you don't empower rapists and sexual abusers. I think that would be a really good place to start. I was just sitting here rewatching the video and realized how silly it was that I didn't make that larger point before. Because, like, This is one of the things that drives me up a wall and makes me feel unmoored from reality. The Orwellian use of language just makes me feel like I'm not sure if I am engaging in the same reality as everybody else is engaging. Like, you have this executive order that you have the gall to entitle defending women, blah, blah, blah. And at the same time, you've just got all of these people at the very height of power that are accused or convicted sexual abusers, sexual assaulters, and rapists. And it's just so sickening to me that these fucking people are using the language of defending women and claiming to be defending me or somebody like me. You really want to defend women? Let's talk about, and you know what? Women and girls, because this is supposedly to protect our girls as well, right? You want to really protect women and girls? Let's take a look at the serial amount of sexual assault that occurs within the women's sports leagues, especially the ones that deal with younger women and gymnastics, ice skating. But it's not just those ones. I guarantee you, it's not just those ones. Let's talk about rape in the military and sexual assault and sexual harassment in the military. Like, don't fucking come to me and talk about defending women and try and paint trans women as the fucking issue when they're not the fucking issue. Okay, sorry. Ended a little hot there, but god damn, this stuff just pisses me off. Just makes me so mad, and it just breaks my fucking heart. Don't forget to be kind and gentle with yourselves, and I will see you soon. Oh, I tried to blink or wink, but it came out of blank. All right, I'm done.